Hey guys, what's up? It's Zola, and today we are going to be moving on. So I've shown you how to do basic animation on your timeline, and I think the next logical thing you're going to want to do is just start learning how to add effects to your video. Now, even though I'm going to do a more in-depth kind of breakdown as to which filters I use, which filters are useful for what, I think as though it would be a good opportunity to early doors kind of show you an overview of what a filter is, how it's applied, how you would animate a filter, and different types of filters. So let's do that. So filters in Photoshop they're called filters, in After Effects they're called effects. If you go to effect, you will have like a big ass list of effects. I will probably have more than you, as I have bought a lot of third-party plugins, but long story short is you can get to them from the effects menu. You can right click, go to effect, and they'll pop up here as well, or once you know what you're looking for you can type it in here. So if I type blur, you'll have all the effects that have something to do with a blur in here, so pretty useful. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and do it this way, right click, go to effect, and I'm going to go, and so like what happens is to the right of these menus you have everything that is a part of that plugin family's tools. So for blur and sharpen are just like Photoshop, they're kept in like the same menu. So I'm going to go to blur and sharpen because it's always one of the easiest ones to explain, and I'm going to go to the trusty fast blur. And as we can see up here, what we have now is we have our project window and we have effect controls, and you might be able to switch between them if your screen is big enough just by doing this. I usually have them something like this side by side, so because I use these two windows quite a lot, so it makes sense to have them side by side, but by default they're going to be like up here and you can drag one to the left. I usually have project on the left if I'm working like this. If you can't see the other window, just click here and you should be able to get to it. It's an easy way to switch between the two. So what we're going to do is go to effect. Now we'll see here effect is a super simple effect because the fast blur is and you'll recognize a few things that we have down here. So now you'll see that there's an effects menu which isn't there when you don't have any effects applied. So if I delete this here, you'll notice it disappear. If I hit Control Z, bring it back. So you get your menu here, and then if you twirl it down you get the parameters. So you can find the parameters down here and adjust them here, or they're up here when you have the layer selected and the effect selected. So either or. So what I'm going to do, if we compare them here, we'll see similar things. So we have the stopwatches, which means we can animate these, and we have the blue numbers, which means I can pull the effect in or out of like this. So manually, sorry, I couldn't find the word there. So fast blur, it does exactly what it says. It's a fast plugin to apply. As you can see, it's happening really quick. Point being, if you use something like a box blur or lens blur, those effects are a lot slower to calculate. So it's called a fast blur because it does render really quick, or at least that's what I think. Now, as you're noticing here, we're getting vignetting on the edges. Vignetting is when you get like a dark border, but if you click this little tick box here, it will cancel that out. So that might be effect you want or not. It looks pretty crappy when you're like down to like this many samples, and you get it becomes like really obvious on those points before you soften it out. So it's kind of useful to have it on. And yeah, that's what the effect does. Like if we want to keyframe it, simple as hitting the thing, moving down in time, bringing it up, and then bringing it back down. And if we loop this area, there we go. I'm going to turn the sound off here. So yeah, we've got the video going from sharp to blurred to sharp again. It's really simple stuff. And the great thing with effects is you can stack as many as you want. So we have that going on, and let's add some color correction. So in effect color correction, we have a menu here. One of my personal favorites is CC Toner. It has become even more powerful over the years. It used to be like just 3 colors or 2 colors, but now you can do like 5 different colors. And depending on which one you choose, so duotone you will only have highlights and shadows available. If you choose tritone you will have midtones as well, and pentone is 5, so darks, mids, brights and highlights. So I'm going to choose tritone here. I'm going to make the white color the brightest colors, like maybe red, and this is just to indicate what I'm trying to show. Let's make it really contrasty, not to make it look cool, but to show what the effect is doing really clearly. Then in the shadows I might just add a bit of purple or something. There we go. A horrific color correction indeed. So we've done this kind of like almost solarizing effect, and now let's keyframe the blend as well. So if you hit U on your keyboard, it will bring up everything that you have a keyframe on, every effect that you have a keyframe on, which is really useful. So we can go from being like not blend 100% means that the effect is not applied because you're seeing 100% of the original footage, and then here we have it fading in and fading out, and that's really the basics of these kinds of effects. But there's one super cool feature which has been added, which I'm going to cover in this lesson, which is the compositing effects. And what does this mean? So let's delete that, and I'm going to add an effect down here. I know what it's called already. It's called fill, and it does exactly what it says on the till. It fills this whatever you drop it on with a color. So I can drop blue or black or whatever. Let's just do blue, right? But the problem is, if I fade the opacity of, I'm expecting this to fade up from blue, from seeing my footage underneath at 0 to seeing all my footage, and that's not what's happening. The opacity is basically doing the same thing that the opacity in the layer does here, which is turning the whole layer on and off, and that's not useful to me. This is really frustrating. What if I want to like fade up this effect? Now there's no other options here to do that. I assume this would do it, but it doesn't. So is there a way to kind of fade effects on, or apply them at different levels? Well, the answer is yes, there is. Now the old way to do this would have been to, so I would apply an adjustment layer. So I go to layer, new adjustment layer, and as I explained briefly in one of the other lessons, like an adjustment layer just applies the effect to everything underneath, but the difference is now I can bring the opacity of the adjustment layer. So if I turn this to blue again, so try and replicate what I was trying to do earlier, if I turn this opacity to blue and then just keyframe the opacity of the actual effect itself, i.e. the layer, this is doing exactly what I want now. So we're fading, from let's start on a blue and then fade to footage, and there we go. We're fading from blue. So do I have to do this with an adjustment layer every time? Because what if I have 3 layers under here and I don't want to do this on all of those layers? Well, there's a super useful thing which was added last year, I believe, and it's hidden away and it's really sly. But if you go down to, because you can't see it here, it's not in this menu, but if you go to compositing options, it lets you, there's a secret kind of thing hidden here, which lets you keyframe the or dial in the strength of your effects. And this is just like one of the most useful things to happen to After Effects in a long time, because it means now I can have my fill effect applied to my layer, and I can fade in the effect, i.e. fade in the fill. And so now I'm coming in from red, and it's just so useful because if I add that fast blur again and put that in there, so let's have it maybe really blurred at the start. So again, hit U to bring up my keyframes and then bring that down, and if I loop that now, I'm going to hide this fill effect. So there we go. So we got the effect happening, but I can also then, I can dial the effect like halfway, and then it creates this kind of like foggy blur, which is kind of cool. But that's not all, folks, because the actual really exciting thing about this, and exciting obviously in moderation, this isn't game-breakingly exciting on a global level, but if you love After Effects like I do, it kind of is. If you go up to either the pen or the rectangle, so I've shown you how to use the pen in After Effects in Photoshop, and it's the same thing here. If you select your layer and draw a mask, now what this will do usually is this will it will mask your whole layer, so you know whether I have fast blur applied or not. This is the way you would mask. If I turn transparency on here, you can see I've basically drawn a custom area through which I can see this layer, which is kind of cool. And if I press M now, I'll explain masks in another lesson. This isn't really me showing you how to use a mask, but you can turn the mask on and off, so you know if you don't want to see it like that, you can turn it off. And again, this is like a mask in Photoshop, no different. But the difference being, if I turn my effect on now and twirl down to effects and fast blur and compositing options and click on this plus arrow, I can add a mask. So I'm going to add the mask there, and you'll see that there's a little I don't even know what that is, to be honest. There's a little blue clipping mask thing that is, I'm not sure why this is not working actually. There we go. Sorry, you have to turn the mask on. And what this is doing now is it's applying the effect, but just within the masked area, because I added a mask with this. And so this is really cool because I can create like almost like a frosted glass. So if I stop the that there, it's kind of like I'm looking through a frosted piece of glass, and all this is happening on one piece of footage. You know, I only have one layer here, and it's allowed me to mask. And if I turn my fill on as well, and as you can see, the fill is not applied at the moment, but well, it's applied to the whole layer. But if I come down into the fill options and compositing options and add the same mask to that, again, it's going to contain my effect within that mask. And then if we do a combination and like bring the opacity down there of the effects, so my fill is only at 33%, and now we're applying a color correction and a blur to a specific area of far footage, all within the same layer, and that is pretty damn cool. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. So I hope you learned something. Go and have a look at effects. Just literally go in, pick one, drop it on your layer. It's nice to have a piece of video because it's easier to see. Some effects do completely different things. So here, this is a blur. Some effects, let me give you an example. Let's just type fractal. If I drop in a fractal on this footage, this is a completely different type of effect, and it will create a fractal based on maths. And this is what I like to call a generator effect, because it kind of just generates you know, graphics rather than, you know, distorting things or any of that kind of nonsense. So you know, this effect is completely different to a blur, and the only way you're going to find out about them is by messing about. So I suggest you do that. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.